Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you we have been conned. The U.S. Supreme Court had been conned into holding that a corporation is a person within the U.S. Constitution, 14th Amendment. My first source of information for this conclusion comes from a sentence from Associate Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, William Rehnquist. He wrote, "This court decided at an early date, with neither argument nor discussion, that a business corporation is a person entitled to the protection, the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment." My second source of information for this conclusion comes from Associate Justice of the U.S. Supreme Court, Justice Hugo L. Black, who wrote this in his dissenting opinion: "I do not believe the word person in the 14th Amendment includes corporations." And he goes on to say that they never mentioned corporations during the deliberations and argument for the 14th Amendment. And my third legal reference for this conclusion comes from a law review article by the name of "The Conspiracy Theory of the 14th Amendment." No, it's called "The Conspiracy Theory of the 14th Amendment" by Howard J. Graham. And it's at volume 47, Yale Law Journal, page 341. This law review article came out 1938. You need to read this one. This one is a big one. They claim that one of the former members of Joint Congressional Committee, which in 1866 drafted the 14th Amendment, his name was Roscoe Conkling. And Roscoe Conkling, after he became a congressman, was in private practice, and he approached the U.S. Supreme Court representing a client, and he used this manuscript journal from the committee to pass the 14th Amendment. And this manuscript journal had not been distributed among the folks. And apparently, this manuscript journal states that corporations were intended to be included within the protection of the 14th Amendment. And Roscoe Conkling, during his oral argument to the U.S. Supreme Court, misrepresented, misquoted, made inappropriate verbal emphasis on parts of this manuscript journal. If you read this law review article and visit these references, you heard my references, you may too conclude that we have been conned into accepting corporations as protected under the U.S. Constitution. And it's important that we realize that the original intention of corporations was to serve the public interest. We were able to cancel the charter of corporations when they no longer served the public interest. Now it's out of control. Corporations only care about money and power. I want you to listen to what Associate Justice, U.S. Supreme Court, Justice White said in one case, in his dissenting opinion. He said, "It has long been recognized, however, that the special status of corporations has placed them in a position to control vast amounts of economic power, which may, if not regulated, dominate not only the economy, but also the very heart of our democracy, the electoral process." And this is what has happened. Corporations now control vast amounts of economic power, dominating the economy and the very heart of our democracy, the electoral process. And ladies and gentlemen, it's time for you to find out who your state legislators are, who your federal legislators are. Write them down, print them out, post them on your wall somewhere. Write a letter and list every one of your grievances. And one of them should be that corporations do not deserve federal constitutional protection. The state senators in Vermont introduced a resolution in Vermont calling for Congress to repeal, to pass a federal constitutional amendment to repeal corporate personhood. The resolution in the state of Vermont apparently has not passed, but it was introduced by state legislators in Vermont, state senators. There is a movement with the website repealamendment.org, which would allow the votes of a majority of state legislatures. In other words, every state legislature would vote, and if a majority of our state legislators, majority of the states vote to repeal a law that was passed by the federal government, it would automatically repeal that federal law. I think it would be, I don't know, 2/3. Maybe it would require 2/3, maybe half. It would be repealamendment.org. We need to do that because the federal government is out of control. We need to support the repeal amendment, repealamendment.org. Again, contact your state legislators, contact your federal legislators, make a list. There's a U.S. Senate bill, 1975, introduced by U.S. Senator Jim DeMint. It would prohibit bailouts from the International Monetary Fund. And don't forget, Senate 1975, repealamendment.org, U.S. Senate Bill 1975. Contact U.S. senators about that. In addition, the federal government has introduced bills which they have gone too far. The Interstate Commerce Clause. We need to do something about the Interstate Commerce Clause. That means allow states to have our own marijuana laws, to legalize marijuana, and not allow federal intrusions. The 9th and 10th Amendments of the U.S. Constitution were intended to protect the states. The decisions of the U.S. Supreme Court during the New Deal in the 1940s allowed the federal government to intrude in state affairs so much that now states have a problem regulating their intrastate and local commerce. We need to deal with that. We need for the federal government to pass laws allowing for the states to regain control of their commerce, such as medical marijuana laws, without concern, without worrying about federal criminal prosecutions. Raw milk sales, so that states can sell raw milk right out of their farms, milk that has not been pasteurized, and without the hype of the federal government intruding of alleged medical infections. And usually it's not. And if there are infections, usually it's caused by agribusiness and not by the small farmers. Again, this is part of the corporate problem, the agriculture, the agribusiness. They want these huge farms and they want to cram them all in there because all they care about is making money. And they're all day. They don't get to graze. They stand over their feces and they inhale their feces, and the agribusiness farmers inject antibiotics. And we eat this. When you eat, watch the documentary Food Incorporated, and watch the documentary Farmageddon movie, and watch the documentary called Supersize Me. They all tell you what it's like. Agribusiness is out of control. This is another example of corporate excess. Please, if you want good food without coming down with cancer and all these other problems, we need to eat organic, good food, and the bad corporations are causing it. One of the top 10 stories involving health in the year 2011 has been that Monsanto is concludedly, the people have concluded that Monsanto is a bad corporation. They want to genetically modify their crops, and it has pesticides, and they're using us as experimental lab rats, like the pharmaceutical industry. Besides the Monsanto corporation, the pharmaceutical corporation, we need to deal with them. Another one of the top 10 stories in 2011 involving health is that more people are dying from the pharmaceutical drugs. That's right, folks. The side effects from pharmaceuticals. Let's not forget the number of instances where people have engaged in suicidal and homicidal behavior as a result of doctors having failed to monitor the medication, the pharmaceutical medication. Not That's allopathic medicine. There's a problem with allopathic medicine. There's also homeopathic medicine that don't have the side effects. Homeopathic medicine, as an example, is truehope.com, www.truehope.com. And they're vitamins, minerals, and herbs. And they don't have the side effects. You're not going to die from them. You're not going to die in the hospitals from the infections. Yeah, many people have died and gotten sick in the hospitals as a result of infections from the hospitals. So it's time to wake up, folks. Make a list. Find out who your state legislators are. Find out who your Congress members are. Get out there and vote, because here in New Jersey, the last election, 7 of 10 registered voters did not vote. And as a result, we're having problems. These congressmen, these people have no fear of because they're being reelected left and right because we're not voting. Wake up, people, please.